Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And today I want to talk to you about Rogue Legacy. This is a game that is available on Steam, so it's a bit different than these console games that I've been reviewing, but I think it's still really worth talking about. Now, Rogue Legacy is a 2D platformer, roguelike with randomly generated levels or dungeons or whatever you want to call them. Now the basic gameplay plays a lot similar, very similar I think in both gameplay and the style to Castlevania games and the Ghosts and Goblins series. You're just a knight that goes around killing things by, you can run around, you can jump, you can use a sword as your main attack, and you also have a secondary spell. It's usually just a secondary item, but it's called a spell because sometimes it's not, sometimes it's a spell thing. And so it's very similar, to those other games, like I mentioned, in that you have to fight things, and you're exploring through these, it's basically a big castle, but there's also an outside as well. But for the purpose of the review, I'm just going to call it a castle most of the time, probably. And you're looking to find these, basically, there are 4 areas. There's the castle, the forest, the tower, and the dungeon. And there's a boss in each of these areas. So you're trying to find the bosses in each of these areas and defeat them. There are also a lot of enemies in the areas as well. And you'll have to learn how to, avoid them and kill them and deal with their patterns and everything and the different groupings in the random rooms. So the different layouts and the different sets of enemies and what they do can be kind of tough to deal with because it's random, but at the same time, you're learning patterns, so it's not too difficult. And if you play those other games I mentioned, you'll probably understand the whole patterns thing. And after you beat the boss in each area, the door to the final boss opens up, and then you can fight the final boss and beat the game. And that sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? You just go to these different areas that are increasing in difficulty, and then, you can just fight the final boss and be done. Four little bosses, and then the big bad boss. Well, it's not really that easy. There's a lot of things there that are going to kill you, and in the beginning of the game, you'll be very weak. So unless you're really good and you can learn really fast, or if you played the game before a lot and become super good at it, you're probably going to be dying a lot. This is really actually a key component of this game is death. And if you know anything about roguelikes, I guess that's nothing new, but I haven't played many. It's probably the first roguelike I really played. So basically in this game you die a lot. And when you die, you are then brought to a screen where you can pick from 3 heirs. That's 3 different characters now that you get to pick from in order to use on your next run-through of this. And here's the thing with this. These 3 characters are random. They have a character class, which kind of dictates their skills, their strengths and weaknesses, and their general stats. They can have these traits, which will they're very interesting, I guess. These traits is that they can be good, like giving you extra knockback for the enemies. They can be something bad, like giving you no knockback when you hit enemies. Or they can be something neutral, like, just making everything black and white. Which, this is kind of weird. It doesn't really affect much, really. So, you can have anywhere from 0 to 2 of these random stats, and or traits, as they're called. And then also your secondary spell or, item. I guess it's usually a weapon, like I say, like an axe, straight out of Castlevania, or something is one of them. There's a bunch of things there too, but all of these things are randomized, and that's pretty cool because now, since it's randomized, you're not stuck with just whatever randomly happens. You still get to have some choice in the decision, because there's 3 different characters for you to choose from every time. So, there's a lot of things you need to consider, like, oh, this is a good character class, but do I really want to have that spell? Or, you know, like, this is really good character, but I really don't like these traits. Or, like, maybe this is a really good spell and traits, but I just don't like that character class. It doesn't really fit my playstyle or anything. And, like, you have to really consider these things. And it's cool because sometimes it kind of forces you to pick characters you wouldn't normally pick, rather than just going in and being like, oh, well, this is this character class, I'll pick that one because I'm most comfortable with it, and it fits me the best. Although it is possible that you'll have 3 of the same character class show up sometimes, because it is random. So, I mean, it's really helpful to get acquainted to all the different classes and secondary spells and all the traits. So it's actually, you know, really interesting, and I think it comes off really well, rather than just being an annoying thing you have to do. Then it brings you to this next screen, and this is where things really get interesting. Because on the next screen, you're basically brought to a skill tree. And you'll notice that throughout your playing, you probably collected a lot of gold. Whether it's through killing enemies, or defeating bosses, or going through chests throughout this randomly generated castle. And this is where you can start using that gold. It's a skill tree. You can upgrade different, you know, stats. You can get yourself different perks. You can unlock more character classes. There's a lot of cool things you can do here, and there's a lot of room for improvement. There are a lot of little branches on this skill tree, and a lot of points to be put into a lot of these skills. So it's really neat, and it helps you kind of plan. Do you want to, you know, build towards a more melee class, or do you want to go for a more magic-focused kind of a build? And if you want to try to head towards one of those directions, is that going to work well if, say, randomly you don't get one of those character classes that fits that kind of playstyle? You also have to consider a lot of these things when you're doing this, and maybe you just want to build a more well-rounded type of character so that no matter what you're given, you can kind of, you know, work with it. A lot of things to consider, different ways to play, helps for replay value a lot, and all these different upgrades in this tree really keep you playing for a longer time than maybe you expect to, or it's possible if you're not enjoying the game that much, longer than you want to. But be careful, because whenever you spend money on one of these skills, the points for everything go up. So every other skill on this tree now is just more expensive every time you buy one. So you want to be careful in what you're purchasing, because getting stuff that you don't necessarily want isn't always helpful, because then it just makes things that you actually do want more expensive. And you don't want to spend all of your money here, because there is another screen. And don't worry, you can go back and forth between these 2 screens. You're not just stuck on them, doing one and then the other. You can go back to that screen and go to your skill tree again. But on the next screen, now there are 3 characters on this screen that are very important. The first is the blacksmith, which he'll allow you to purchase new armor and new swords. And of course, each one has their own, you know, perks to them. The thing is, there's a couple catches with the blacksmith. One is that you don't just get these things. There aren't just things available for you to buy. You have to go find a blueprint for it, these items, in the castle, and usually, you know, found in chests. You try to find these blueprints for these things, and then once you bring them back, meaning once you die, you'll be able to unlock that there, and now you can buy this armor. And the second catch is that each of these bits of armor and these swords will weigh you down, so you need to have a carrying capacity for them. And the better the item, the more it weighs. So it can be kind of tough to try and manage what you want versus what you can hold at the time. And that's a little annoying. I think it's a little tacked on, but it makes sense, I suppose. The next character is the Enchantress, and this is pretty much the same as the Blacksmith, except that you find runes throughout the castle, and then once you find them, of course, you can purchase those there, and these are nice because they are weightless. You can have as many of these, you know, on at a time as you want, but you can only have one per slot. There's only like 5 slots or something. And it's just another way to further customize your character besides the skill tree stats. And that's kind of cool how you get to, you know, keep kind of working in different abilities and stats and perks and stuff. here as well. And the third character is the Architect, which, and this is kind of an interesting one, where talking to the Architect, you can lock down the castle. So, if you choose to lock down the castle, what happens basically is that it's not randomized. The same castle you just were in when you died before, it'll be the exact same. The only differences that will happen here are that all of the enemies will be back, and all the chests that you opened up will still be open. So this is usually only good for, you know, like, I guess if you're trying to beat the game more quickly and you just want to get to a different area, this is a nice way to do it, I suppose. But, well, another good thing is that you can find bosses easily. Like, if you found a boss and you want to try it again right away and practice fighting the boss, rather than, you know, going back and having to go through all of the areas to try and find the boss again, then this is really nice for you to try and get in there and do that. The real thing that sucks about it, not so much that the enemies are back or that the chests are open, but the real downside to doing this is that the Architect takes a certain percentage of your gold, which means that during your playing through that life, every bit of gold that you acquire is going to be worth less as you collect it. So I mean that's kind of a bummer. But here's another thing. You know, it's worth mentioning also that just for convenience sake, if you don't know, there's kind of a pattern. The castle is always the first place you'll enter. It's always the first thing there. It's generally, you know, on the left of the overall map, of any random map. And generally going upwards is the tower, going to the right is the forest, and going down is the dungeon. Those are the general placements of these 4 areas. So knowing that, you might not necessarily even need to or want to bother with locking down the castle, because you can kind of, you know, go where you need to go without having to go through every single room if you don't want to, or without losing more gold. So that's a thing to consider. And now you want to spend probably as much, if not all of this, as you can between the first 2 screens, because at the end of the second screen is Sharon the Gatekeeper. And basically, he just takes all of your gold and lets you go back into the castle for it. That's every time. He'll take all of it. You know, so you need to really, like, spend it wisely, and then you also have to kind of, you gotta think about it, because this is where it actually makes, death, matter, is what I would say. That's something that was kind of, concerning before, where I thought, well, death doesn't really matter in this game. In fact, you're rewarded for it by getting, you know, more power-ups and you know, better skills and everything. You become stronger. But, aside from just not beating the game yet when you die, and having to keep going and spend more time on it, the thing that really pushes you to not die here is so you can keep collecting enough gold. Because if you come back and you don't have enough gold for, you know, a piece of armor, or a rune, or a certain skill that you've been trying to get and you're working towards, if you don't have enough to buy that next upgrade, you have to consider, do I want to spend this on something else and raise the price of all of the other things, and, you know, consequently raising the price of that thing I was working towards anyway, or do I want to just have that money going completely to waste and keep it a bit cheaper and try to do better on this next run by having him take all my money when I go in? I mean, it's something you have to consider, and it's nice because then you're not just so excited to die all the time. Sometimes you really want to survive so you can get that nice upgrade and get as many enhancements as possible. So it's really fun. It's an insanely fun game to play through that. You have to get really good at recognizing these patterns. There are also a lot of challenge rooms in the game as well, which will sometimes require you to have certain power-ups. Like, you can get these extra jumps and some mid-air dashes, or on-the-ground dashes as well. They're just generally dashes. You can get a certain number of those from certain runes and armor, and those are actually pretty interesting and help you a lot in these challenge rooms. Because sometimes they're avoiding spikes, sometimes they're getting to a chest fast enough, sometimes they're about killing all the enemies in the room. It really depends. Like I say, it's random. So it's really interesting, but usually in the challenge rooms you get some really good loot, so they're worth checking out and trying out. And there's a lot of different room types and everything, so with all the randomness and room for improvement, there's a lot of hell of a lot of play value and a lot of replay value as well. And I mean, personally, I maxed out all my stuff and I got everything, all of the armor and the runes, maxed out all the stuff on the skills tree, and I clocked in at about 96 hours. So it's a pretty good value of a game if you're enjoying it, but I don't think everyone's going to enjoy it quite as much as I did to play it that long. But it's still a really good value for what it is. I do have to talk about some downsides of the game, though. And believe me, there's some stuff I've left out, so there's still things for you to be surprised by in the game. I'm not giving away too much, like what the bosses are or some other little things in here, so go ahead and have fun with it. I haven't ruined it for you, I really hope. The thing is, there are some downsides, because every game has downsides, and I loved this game, but there's a few things that I could see being bothersome. Like I said, one of those things is still that, probably the biggest thing is how death doesn't really matter, which is kind of a thing in a lot of modern games, or just, newer games, is that they don't really want you to lose progress or die or get a game over or anything. So in here, again, it's not really, it's like it's rewarding you for death, and dying isn't really a punishment anymore, because you get to be more powerful, you get to get some cool stats and gear and all that, so it's not really like and you could have a new character, so it's not really like a bad thing. It's usually a very good thing when it happens, but I guess the only real things that make it bad when you die are that you didn't get enough gold for a certain upgrade or a certain thing you were working towards, or that you were actually trying to beat the game and you ended up dying, and now I gotta do all this stuff over again. So those are the only things really driving you to not die, or getting enough gold to get a good upgrade, or trying to actually beat the game. And I guess along with that, it's kind of a thing where you might get distracted if you like grinding and getting powerful and seeing how awesome your character can be, kind of like I did. You're probably going to end up grinding for a long time and not focusing on beating the game anymore, more so focusing on creating a good character, and that means that death is a necessary thing, and you still don't want to die until you get as much gold as possible, but then again, when you die, you get to spend your gold. It's going to be easier for you to get more gold, so that's kind of a thing where it can be kind of a distraction, I'll admit. There's some glitches in the game as well, where every once in a while, it doesn't happen a lot, and I don't know if they've since been patched more or not, but it's possible they either have been patched by now or getting more patched, because it's been a little while since I last played. But basically, what happened every once in a while was, gold would fall through the floor, like on the corners of certain floors, they would just fall through, and I wouldn't be able to collect it because it's inside of the floor, or falls through that even and is off screen and doesn't exist anymore once it's off screen. And that was a little annoying, especially when I was hoarding gold for a while, so that's a thing that isn't that great. It's also really scary when your character does it. Yeah, I had a couple times where my character kind of fell through the floor and then bounced around between a few different adjacent screens somehow because the game didn't understand where I actually was or trying to go or something. It was spooky, but it never broke the game. I never had to restart my game for anything, so I don't think it's really all that bad. I think it was just kind of weird detection there between those corners or something. And, it only happens, it freaks you out maybe a little bit, but I've never had to break the game or anything, so I wouldn't really worry about it. It's just annoying and a little scary is all. And the other thing is that if you play this game long enough, like I say, I played it for a really long time, so you might not have this issue, and I heard it was worse before I even got the game. They kind of patched it to alleviate some of the problems, but with all of the different rooms there are, I mean, it's randomly generated, right? But here's the thing, is that on the downside is there's only so many different rooms that the game can generate, even if they're challenge rooms or basic rooms, and putting them, putting what enemies are in the rooms. There's only so many combinations of things before you've seen it all, and eventually you pretty much will see it all. Recognize all of the room layouts, once you get into them, and you'll understand, where to go, what to do in them. It might take a while. Like I said, I played it for a long time, but I did feel like after a while it was kind of samey. And this wouldn't be so much of a problem, except that I don't feel like the areas had very unique aspects to them. The castle, this forest, the tower, and the dungeon all have the same types of room layouts. The only differences, I think, are that the forest and the dungeon, I felt like, had a lot more spikes in them for some reason. That's the only thing I could really say. But even so, that might just be depending on how random it was. That generally I just got more spikes in those areas. I'm not sure. So that's really interesting, I guess. And there's a thing where, like, that might bother you, might not. It might become a problem depending on how long you play, it might not. But with the enemies also, it's like there are only so many enemies in the game as well. And they will start to get stronger on you as you become stronger. But, like, the enemies... there's not like there's a whole lot of different ones in the different areas. They only add maybe 1 or 2 different enemy types as you go to each new area. So it's not like that, I don't know, it's not like it's that different or that hard to adjust for a lot of those new areas. The hardest thing is going to be adjusting to the castle, the first area, because of the enemies there and not knowing at all what they do. And then once you get to the other areas, you know what some of the people do. So, I mean, it's a thing. You'll learn, I guess. But it's just probably because I played it for so long that some of the stuff felt a little samey and they didn't stretch very far on some of it. And I guess the music, I like it. There's a bunch of different tracks you can pick, but you can't do it in the game. I mean, you can. There's no menu for it. Basically, the 4 areas have their own tracks. And I think each of the boss fights might have their own track. I'm not sure. But, you have to listen to that same thing the entire time you're in one of those areas, and if you're in them a lot, which is probably the same for any game, but that can wear on you. And, there is a way to change it, but you have to find a jukebox in the level. There's somewhere hidden in one of the areas, or maybe multiple times, it depends if it's randomly generated more than once, where you can pick from different themes, and that's cool, and all, but the thing is, you should be able to pick that from the menu, maybe, so you can listen to some different music as you do it, so it doesn't just wear on you to hear the same themes all the time. And to do this, you have to go and find this, so you have to listen to those themes until you find those things, and they are only active for as long as you're in the area. So, say you step outside your bounds and go to a different area and say, oh crap, I don't want to be there yet, you come back, it plays the original themes, or original area's theme, instead of the thing that you changed it to, so you'd have to go all the way back to the jukebox, change it again. It's a hassle, it seems a little silly, and, I don't know, I guess I just kind of found it a strange choice for that, is all. But even with those flaws, they're nothing real major. And I still really like Rogue Legacy a lot. I mean, I love this game. Rogue Legacy really, how do I even put it? Rogue Legacy was great. I love it. It's the whole reason I got Steam. I mean, I played this game a bit at a friend's place, and it was just so fun, and I got immediately hooked, and I had to get it. So I went back to my place, I downloaded Steam, and I paid the full $15 for Rogue Legacy. And I also, didn't have a controller for it, so I got a wired an Xbox 360 controller. I tried playing it for a few days without it, which was really hard because I'm shitty with a keyboard, but I really wanted to play, so I tried to muddle through it for a couple days until I could get that, and I paid $30 for a wireless Xbox 360 controller when I don't even have any kind of Xbox at all. So, basically $45 to play this game. And it was worth it. It was a great game, and I love it, and it's possibly in my top 10. I haven't really thought about my top 10 of all time or anything. It's definitely one of my favorite, if not my very favorite, game on Steam. It's a very important game to me, and it's also great because it's something magical happened with it, where, and it sounds stupid when I say that, but you play a bunch of games, and yeah, there's good games, and then there's there's a handful of great games. And then you might even have a list of games that you would call, even less so, that you would call your favorite games. But this game was something really special in that this happens usually only once, if you're lucky, in your life maybe, where you play a game that feels like it was designed for you. Like the stuff in this game was like, they're making this game. They're like, I really think Sam would like it if we did this, and it's just great. The Rogue Legacy really feels like that. It's the first game I played since Banjo-Kazooie, where I really felt like a game which is designed like for me, because it was just so good. It was everything that I was like looking for at the time that I wanted. It was awesome. And I really, really enjoyed it, and it's a really great experience to have, and that's why I keep telling everybody to go buy it. It's worth the $15. If you want to wait for a sale, it goes probably for like $3 or $4 at a time when it goes on sale, depending on the sale. So it's worth getting at full price, but if you want to wait for a sale, I guess go ahead. I would say don't pass on this game because it's great. It should run on almost any computer because it runs on mine. Mine's kind of a hunk of junk, and I really just wanted to talk about this with you guys because, I wanted you to play it. I wanted to share it with you guys. Really want you to play the game. So if you've played the game, leave whatever kind of comment you want about the game because I'm sure I'll be fine with it. Even if you bash it, that's fine. You have your opinions. Just explain yourself. Don't just say this game sucks and then just leave it at that for no reason. That'd be dumb. But yeah, Rogue Legacy is great. 10 out of 10. Play the game. I don't know why the scale probably wouldn't even matter, but just so you guys know how much I really love this game, is I made a review for it on Steam as well, and I'm going to link that in the description, because I don't know if I can link it, an external site, on my thing, or not on YouTube. I don't know if that's enabled, or what, if I need to sell my soul in order to do that, so we'll see how that goes, but it's definitely going to be in the description. You can go there. It's not hard for you to do. And check out my review on Steam if you don't think my, it's a bit shorter to do that than listen to me blab at you. Obviously, these are pretty long, and it probably doesn't take you that long to read it. And I said a lot of the same things, but I probably hit some stuff I didn't hit here. Probably said things a little bit better than I said here, because it's just me, talking to you guys. And I was doing that just because, well, it got a lot of views recently for whatever reason, I don't know. But it was awesome. Thanks, guys, for looking at that. Whoever you are, if you're watching this video, probably not. And, so it's probably a decent review, judging by the positive feedback, how many people, bothered to rate it at all. And you can check that out if you want to, or if you think this is good enough, go play the game. Alright? That's good. Do that. And, yeah, leave whatever you want in the comments, and, just, thanks for watching. It's cool. I don't know how to end these, really. A real person would